Croeso mawr i'r Coleg Brenhinol Cerdd a Drama Cymru. Mae'n hyfryd I weld chi hi yma a diolch I chi gyd am ddod. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and a very warm welcome to the Royal Welsh College of Music and Drama. It's absolutely lovely to see everyone here this afternoon and thank you so much for coming. My name's Helena Gaunt and I'm honoured to serve as the principal of the college here. And it's a particular honour today to be hosting today's celebration here of David Jackson's life for David Jackson's family. What they've put together in this event feels to me to be a very special opportunity for us all to reflect together and indeed celebrate such a special man and his continuing legacy. How lovely it is to feel this room full of music that we know he would absolutely have loved. So I want to say a huge thank you to all the performers today, the speakers, and indeed the tech, the venues and the front of house teams. It's been wonderful to see this event come together with such collaboration and goodwill from all sides. And most of all, thanks to Anne, Kate, Douglas and the whole family for your vision to make the event happen and for shaping it this way. It's so clear that David touched many, many people's lives. And as I've reflected over the last months about here in the college, one of the things that keeps coming back to me is just how encouraging he always was to our students. Whenever he came to a performance or sat on a panel for one of our competitions, he was always looking at their strengths, always encouraging, always asking them to take the next steps. And of course, he always went above and beyond to find the ways that our students could engage with Cardiff Singer of the World, have their horizons opened, have new opportunities and take new steps. At a personal level, he never stopped encouraging me and recognised the pressures on leaders in these difficult times. Encouragement can feel in short supply these days, and yet is so vital to everyone. And so I hope more than anything that today will encourage us all, perhaps more than anything, to keep that beaming smile of his in our hearts and also to go on and keep his wonderful legacy alive. Diolch eto, and I'm going to hand to Tim, our fabulous Director of Music, to say something a little more about the programme.
Diolch Helena. Unusually for me, I'm not going to say very much at all. But I want to draw everyone's attention to the first word on that screen up there. It's been a privilege to work with Anne and Kate and the family and all the people who are contributing to this afternoon's programme to shape this event. And the directive from the family has been very much that this should be an event that was like David himself, full of life, full of joy. Of course, the reason that we're all here today is desperately sad, and there will be moments in this programme which will be very emotional. But I just want to, if I may, give you all permission to enjoy this event. That's what David would want. I'm sure he's looking down at us and thinking, what on earth is all that fuss being made about me? But please show your appreciation in whatever way feels fit. Applaud, laugh, and just keep the spirit of David alive with his beautiful smile, his wonderful sense of humour, and his deep, deep love of music and the arts. Diolch o galon.
He brought enthusiasm, experience, common sense, particularly when he thought sometimes I was perhaps being a little bit too enthusiastic and slightly wavering off the reins. But most of all, he brought us, with that smile, which has just disappeared, sunshine.
So I knew David for 62 years. We were at primary school together in Glasgow.
David, Sister Carol, and Brother Pete came to the school when David was just 8. So I don't remember much about that time, but it was when we went to Bellahouston Academy that we met Anne, and the three of us became firm friends. David, believe it or not, showed no signs of a talent for music, but he didn't. But the head of the thriving music department, who was a bit strict and scary in her approach to teaching, had a real talent for developing children with an aptitude for music. She spotted David very quickly. The three of us often reflected on and laughed about this quite stressful time in our lives, but we realised we owe so much of our love and knowledge of music to that time. We were the only three who chose to study music. Anne was an extremely accomplished cellist. David and I played the violin, so we made music together all the time. David had fallen hook, line and sinker for Anne. I sat in the middle. David was always leaning across me to chat up Anne. She was having absolutely none of it. But she did cave in eventually. Why did I not sit on the outside? I often wonder, but I think that could have been worse. On a residential orchestra course where we were supposed to be having fun, David had an aberration and he chucked Anne. Now that's a good Glasgow expression for breaking up with. But Anne just didn't have the fun she should have had at that time, but eventually sense prevailed and they were back together again very quickly. David excelled at almost everything. He didn't play the piano, but he went off one summer and he learned, self-taught, coming back to school after the holidays, an extremely proficient pianist, which just got better and better. The words keyboard harmony still send a shiver down my spine. Let's just say Anne and I found it a bit difficult. Not David, he just did it. Anytime, anywhere, he just sat down, no effort, and did it. The only thing David did not excel at, and none of us did, was the weekly Radio Times test we got. It was clearly meant to improve our general knowledge, but the problem, certainly with David and I, was we didn't buy it in our household. But I discovered just last night that Anne did. So, however, none of us were able to get any question right, not even the great David, and we laughed about it over the years. When we were around 17 and 18, David was prolific in composition by this time. Songs, piano trio and quartet and so on. But when we were in sixth form and hugely encouraged by the head of music, David composed an opera. It was called The Toymaker's Shop. It lasted an hour. What an achievement for David. He completed it in 4 months, which is no mean feat. Of course, Anne and I were involved. I'm one of the original cast members. It was a huge success. David appeared in the local paper. I know that some of you know that David aspired to be a composer, but a comment from a university tutor put him off. It was so wonderful that he composed the songs just before he died, and whilst he didn't get to hear their performance from the Wigmore, he knew it was happening. It came as no surprise when David joined the BBC that he would go on to have such a great career. He never lost his love for music and the people that were involved. He never became blasé about meeting and working alongside his heroes. And in one of our last conversations, he told me how privileged he felt to have done the job he did and meet the people that he met. David and I shared a great love of and a great interest in singers. We had many friendly disagreements about voices. Always generous with his knowledge, he helped me get to grips with Wagner. I just couldn't get it, and he just kept telling me I couldn't get through the pain barrier. He did, being David. He provided me with scores, CDs, books, and if you've ever visited Ninian Road, you will know there are loads of these. He just howled with laughter when I finally made it and got through that pain barrier. David and Anne have faced a great number of challenges in life, but always solidly together and proactive is how they have dealt with whatever life threw at them. They are exceptional parents to Kate and Doug. I remember them spending time poring over emails, letters, making sure that Doug got the best possible care and chances in his life. It seemed it was never an easy path. It was no different for Kate. They were determined she would have the best life they could give her, and as you can see, she's become a very lovely young woman. David adored his family, and I'm sure if you'd spoken to him at all in the last 18 months, I have absolutely no doubt you will have heard something of Kate and Mike's wedding. He just couldn't stop talking about it. The wider family, Carol and Ewan and Irene and Alan and their families, remain close. They spend a lot of time together calling themselves the clan, and wherever they are and whatever they do, David will remain at the heart of it. Anne, Kate and Doug will be well looked after. David knew that. So finally, a reflection on my last time I spent with David. In mid-October, I spent the weekend in Cardiff. I wasn't quite sure what to expect, but it all seemed very normal. David and I talked a lot, mainly reminiscing. Kate was busy in the kitchen cooking lunch for us all. Mike was working at the kitchen table. Carol, Anne and I were sitting at the kitchen window like three Madame Defarges watching the Cardiff Half Marathon. David said he was going to go and do some work, and he joined Mike and Kate in the kitchen. He was working on his song competition. Doug popped round. David was talking a lot about the upcoming gala for Cardiff Singer. I penciled that date in my diary, assuming I'd be coming across for it. Never did I think I'd be coming to say goodbye to David. 10 days later, he was gone. He was working right up to the end, staying interested in everything that was going on around him and surrounded by his much-loved family. When he began to work on Cardiff Singer of the World, it was no surprise that Gundula Janowitz was on the jury. I mean, she was his favourite singer, and I think she popped up 3 times. But he cared immensely about all the singers who took part and not just the week of the competition. That event has been so high up on our social calendar. A large gathering of family and me at Ninian Road, the pattern always the same, attending the concert, back home, wine, crisps, nibbles, you know the kind of thing, came out, and then we watched it all over again on the television. There was much laughter, there was much banter, there was a heck of a lot of argument and disagreement, but we just had so much fun. I have no idea how we will cope with the next Cardiff Singer, but cope we will. We will celebrate the legacy that David has left behind. There's a saying that goes, new friends are like silver and old friends are like gold. David and Anne are definitely in my golden category. So my message to you is, cherish your friends, particularly those in the golden category. You never know when you'll lose them. David's a huge loss in my life, and if I had a glass in my hand right now, I would toast a very long friendship. I would say a huge thank you to him for the fun, the laughter, the in-depth music conversations, the many disagreements, and a great shared experience over the years. Thank you.
I promised I wouldn't say too much, and here I am again. I just wanted to put a little bit of context into the next piece that you're going to hear. As well as being Director of Music here, I'm privileged to be the conductor of the National Youth Choir of Wales. And assembled behind me on stage now, you'll see 24 young people, many from the National Youth Choir of Wales, and also students from the Royal Welsh College of Music and Drama. David had such a long and deep association with this place and was also chair of National Youth Arts Wales. And on our summer residencies, David would also often come and spend some time watching rehearsals, certainly coming to the concerts. But last summer, it was clear that David was not going to be well enough to come. So we recorded a video of the choir with around 90 young people singing an arrangement of Finlandia, with words by Lewis Valentine, Dros Gymru'n Glad. The reason we sent this video to David was because of the words, meaning that from across Wales there are people coming. And when David saw young people full of hope, full of a love of music, that was why he worked so hard for National Youth Arts Wales. I spoke to David on a WhatsApp video call around 2 weeks before he died. And he was saying in that call, and Anne has said since, how much he loved hearing that piece. And Anne asked, would we perform that this afternoon? So this is Finlandia.
Good afternoon. I'm Chris Britton. I'm head teacher of Ysgol y Derry, a large special school for children with additional learning needs in Penarth. And I'm not going to talk to you about music. I'm going to talk to you instead about another passion of David's, which you may not be aware of, or you might. And that was his passion for education, in particular his passion for education of children with additional learning needs. So, it's May 2009, and I arrive at a country house for an interview. Inside, there's a panel waiting. In particular, and I didn't know his name then, there was David. He sat, he smiled, he encouraged, he nodded, he put an extraordinarily nervous candidate at ease. And finally, Anne tells me, he fought with the governors to get me appointed because I had no experience whatsoever in additional learning needs, but a lot as a head. And he must have seen something in me that day. So he appointed me with the governors to this job, and it was a decision which in many ways changed my life, and I think changed the lives of so many children and their families as we worked together over the coming years. He had an amazing knack of maintaining eye contact, and he had, and you'll all, I think, know what I mean when I say he had smiling eyes. And his smile came straight out of his eyes, but it was quite disconcerting sometimes. He could pin you with his gaze. He remained a governor at the school long after Douglas had finished as a pupil, and he was fully engaged in the life of the school. He took an extraordinary interest in everything that came his way, and anything we asked him to do was done with kindness and professionalism. He'd be the first to congratulate us on our successes, and we have many, and he'd be the first to step into support when things were difficult, and there were many difficult times as well. He chaired some incredibly difficult committees with calmness, kindness and professionalism, and that kind of support isn't common. I only ever fell out with him once. Hard to believe, isn't it? Falling out with David Jackson. It was the first governing body meeting after I was appointed. "Hello, Dave," I said cheerfully. You know, don't you? You know. The smile dropped, the eyes weren't smiling any longer. "It's David," he said. He always did things really well, didn't he? Extraordinarily well. He wasn't going to do, if it wasn't going to be done incredibly well, he wasn't going to do it, he wasn't going to get involved. And I was talking to him about a show that was coming to Cardiff, and I thought tickets were going to be difficult to get. He said, "Well, I can probably help you there." He said, I said, "I want to take the whole family, I need 10. "Not a problem," he said, "not a problem, you leave that with me." So I did. And he delivered, as he always did. He properly delivered this time. I was thinking, 10 tickets, maybe up in the gods somewhere. No. 10 of the best seats in the house. £900 later, I had to sit down. When you talk about David to anyone in the school, and I've been talking to people across the school about him this week, everybody says immediately, what a lovely man and a kind man. Talk with the IT team, and he'd come in to get his iPad fixed, and he said, he'd just sit and chat with us. You know, what an amazing, amazing man. He was interested in everything we did, even though we think what we do is really boring. And I think that's how we really remember him, as our friend and our wise counsel, as our cheerleader. Tim Excel, our chair of governors, and a long-time friend of David's, can't be here today due to illness, and he's just asked me to say this. David's friendship was freely given, and his sage advice was always sought by me as chair, and that then benefited all. His thoughtful contributions were always actively sought and were greatly appreciated at governors' meetings, and he's missed by us all. So we've heard talk of David's legacy, and he leaves a legacy at this school. It's an incredible school. It's a huge school. It does amazing things for children with additional learning needs. And he was part of that. He was part of the design when we put it together. He was part of supporting us and thinking about the build of it. He supported us in staffing it, and more than anything else, he was driving with us to make sure it all happened. On a personal level, he got me through some very difficult times. And we heard earlier about, how much he appreciated the difficulties of leadership, and he definitely felt that for me. And I'm always grateful for the times that, it's some dark times, but he was always there somehow guiding you back to the light, cheerfully, helping you see the positive sides and bringing you forwards. And empathy and care and love were in so much abundance from him, and I'm forever grateful personally. In a strange completion of the circle, he was there when I started in 2009, and I retired yesterday. and I'm speaking about him today. We've much to thank him for at Ysgol y Derry, and there's too much to list here today, but I'd like you all to know that we miss him dreadfully, and we carry a part of him in everything we do at the school. Thank you.
What an afternoon of beauty and love. And I feel so lucky to be able to add just an extra thought about David to everybody here this afternoon, to Anne and Kate and all the family. It was in the beginning of the spring term in 2014 when, in this building, I met with Hilary Boulding, the then principal of the Royal Welsh College of Music and Drama, and asked if she might have any suggestions for a suitable chair for the Forget-Me-Not chorus. At that time, a young and aspirational charity that uses the power of song to support people living with dementia and those who love and care for them. Without hesitation, Hilary suggested that I contact David, and after a brief chat, he agreed to meet me for a coffee. What a life-changing moment in the charity's history and for our small team. Over the next 11 years, David became a cherished friend and mentor and led the charity with a commitment and a passion that went far beyond all expectations. When David took over as chair, we ran a single community choir in Cardiff. By the time he stepped down in 2024, we were running 5 community choirs, 4 hospital services, and a care home programme reaching 29 care homes, as well as online delivery in real time and through a library of films. Over 2,000 care homes were signed up to our online service. It was a great source of pride to David and the team when we received our first message from our new choristers in New Zealand. Forget-Me-Not chorus doesn't work from an office in order to save on costs. So over the 11 years of his chairmanship, we frequented many of the capital's finest coffee establishments. Our informal meeting venues were symbolic of David's leadership. He didn't need to meet in grand or ostentatious buildings. There was no pomposity or ego that needed to be stroked. We'll hear today of his incredible career, and yet he never needed to overstate those achievements. His humility and humanity defined our relationship with him and the man that he was and that we knew. He didn't need to be heard, but was happy to listen. He didn't need to be seen, but was happy to look on and support. He didn't need to be praised, but was happy to give praise and encouragement. He didn't need to be wined and dined, but happy to accept the occasional coffee, although he was always the first to the bar. That's the coffee bar, by the way. The Forget-Me-Not chorus supports people who are often in crisis and living through the most difficult of times. Singing offers joy and companionship in the midst of the greatest challenges. And David was the most incredible chair because he just got it. He'd come and sit in a care home alongside residents and their families and bring his warmth and his humour to the session. He attended all our events and was a constant and available chairman, always at the end of the phone when needed. However, he also used all his contacts and phenomenal skills to promote the charity. There are too many instances to share with you today, but I would just like to tell you of a particular highlight. In 2019, David suggested that as part of the BBC Singer of the World Fringe programme, the BBC might film a Forget-Me-Not chorus live rehearsal in this theatre. The opportunity to share the passion and ethos of the charity, challenging preconceptions and showing the positive impact that singing had on those living with dementia was a gift. And if this was not enough, David continued to work his magic. He is held in such high regard that, as we saw time and time again, colleagues were happy to support a cause he truly believed in. He asked his friends, the legendary mezzo-soprano Frederica von Stade and soprano Dame Kiri Te Kanawa, to take time out of their busy schedule to chat about their careers and friendship at a fundraising lunch in Penarth. They agreed immediately. What a coup for the charity during Cardiff Singer of the World Week. Then it just got better. Frederica von Stade joined our choristers the following day to sit alongside them at our live rehearsal. I can't really adequately sum up in words the joy and pride our choristers felt as they sang to a BBC audience alongside one of the world's most loved mezzo-sopranos. And this took place because of David, whose vision, generosity, and belief in people opened doors that could never be imagined. I met with David just a few weeks before he died. It's so interesting listening to everybody who's come up here and said the same. So even at the end of his life, David gave time to everybody, generous in his last weeks. And we had a cup of coffee, but this time at his home, made by Anne. I think that was a busy time, Anne, just there with the coffee pot. And he told me that being chair of the Forget-Me-Not chorus was one of his proudest achievements. It was our very great fortune to have been led by him, to have worked alongside him, and to experience his commitment, warmth, humour, and humanity. And on behalf of the Forget-Me-Not chorus and the thousands of people who are part of our community, I would like to say thank you, David. I'll finish with a poem by Samuel Taylor Coleridge entitled A Good Man, and David was. A good man acts without applause, guided by a quiet inner cause. He lifts the heavy, shares his bread, with kindness, words and actions fed. He fights for truth, though foes are near, and acts with love instead of fear. A simple life, a gentle hand, doing good across the land. Thank you, David.
So I wrote this poem about David towards the end of his life. At the time he was writing his collection of songs about the journey that he was going through and about dying himself. And I know that he was still holding meetings and he was still working and he was still FaceTiming everybody at the time. He was busy, and I really wanted to kind of try and capture how the family saw him rather than him trying to tell us how it felt for him too. And I felt fortunate that I was able to read the first half of this to him 3 days before he passed away. At the time it was written in present tense, and he said it made him feel seen. And I know that every single one of you did as well with your messages. So before I read it, I just want to say thank you for that too, because the family have received so many wonderful, kind words, and it meant the world to him, and it does to us too. So this, I couldn't think of a way of summarizing him in a phrase, so it's just called David. You picture him, and I'll read it, and I hope it captures him. Stoic he stood on a peaceful shore, under the darkening sky and his final moon. A man called honor, grace, and love, whose flame burnt bright and rivaled the sun. Time slowed down towards the end, each breath filled with hope, memories, and a lifetime of good deeds. The wind traced his fragile smile, sent to him from all corners of the world, and gently it whispered the thanks of 1,000 friends, the noble folk to whom he was champion. The tide folded over him, waves washed his feet and healed his well-earned scars, and he let them mend his soul, calm in the twilight, waiting for the rising sun. But on this, his final night, he knew a storm grew on the horizon. Its melody groaned with the dancing stars, and rain sharp as memory poured. Yet he did not flinch. He greeted the gale with open hands, awash with love, shoulders steady and strong, he stood tall, carried the pain without complaint, and met the storm with rising tide with equanimity. Like a sentinel, he stood as it cleansed him. And in the darkness of his final night, poised between two worlds, he sang a beautiful song of reminiscence and joy. He longed for the time he did not have, but sang his tune without regret, and he settled the storm and soothed his soul before he lay to rest upon the shore. Peaceful he lay on a moonlit shore, surrounded by love and his final smiles, and in this love he remains forever unwavering, breathing with the wind, rising with the tide, dancing with the stars, and beating in our hearts. We will sing his song, we will carry his flame, and he will be there with us when the sun rises again. Thank you.
So the day has come where we perform David's late songs. And there's a little story to this, which is a rather beautiful story. It was devastating to hear from David that he was incurably ill. And he sent a message saying, I'm just going to I won't be, sending in messages, receiving, I'm just be very, very quiet. Anyway, so the weeks, the summer went on, and I thought, I can't bear it. What can I do just to reach out to him, just to say, no pressure, but just say, I'm thinking about you and how much we all love you. And he said, well, can we FaceTime? And it was in that wonderful conversation that David said, what I really want to do is to write something for Anne and for my family, but where I write about the process of dying. I really want to do that. I said, well, I'm 100% behind you. You have to do that. And I was really fortunate to see David just weeks before he died. And we had a wonderful conversation. It was only 20 minutes, because even that was exhausting to him at that point. But I couldn't stop myself, and I said, well, how are the songs coming along? And he said, well, I haven't done anything. It's so exhausting. I'm so tired. it's even just having you, I'm quite an exhausting person, I know, but but he said, I'm going to have to lie down after you leave. I thought, thanks. But he said, and then he said something else to me, which is like a red rag to bull. He said, what if they're no good? And I said, David, everything, anything, everything from you is going to be so precious. And you know, I hadn't realized until that point that how much his dream was to be a composer. And that from the day that his professor or teacher said to him, you know, you're not good enough to be a composer, he hadn't written any music. So, but we have these beautiful late songs. And, you know, I had a concert coming up. I was accompanying the singer Ruby Hughes. And that was a radio broadcast. And so we were able to, one of these songs, which is called We Are Not Alone, actually was broadcast, the premiere was broadcast on Radio 3, but today we're going to sing them for the first time complete, Jess, Ingrid and myself. So these are the late songs by David Jackson.
Hello everyone from the South Pacific of my beautiful New Zealand. We're all here gathered today and thrilled to be in beautiful Cardiff to remember our dear, dear friend, David Jackson. I had a wonderful working relationship and a friendly relationship with David, but lots of laughs, lots of beautiful things. He was a professional, he was funny, and he took the reins of the Cardiff Singer of the World in full force and reinvented it in some ways and gave it a new life and a new interest. We had a wonderful time creating all the different things that we wanted to in the Cardiff to make sure that the singers always reigned. And the one moment that I remembered, and the first time we were judging, we were only preliminary judges, a Mongolian singer came into the auditions. And I was just so shocked that a singer from Mongolia could actually sing like that. And he made it to the finals, which was a big, big thrill. And we thought, did we choose the singer or did we choose Mongolia? I wasn't quite sure. It was just so fantastic and fascinating, this wonderful singer. So David had a love of music, as you know, and he had a love. He always thought singers should reign supreme, which was fantastic for my case. And so shortly before David passed away, I managed to go and spend some time with he and Anne. and those beautiful moments of just looking at Anne and knowing how strong she was for him during those very, very sad times. And the biggest moment that I think that I have to remember is when I took one of my singers from the foundation, Sam Downs, to visit him. And I said, do you think you could sing one of the songs, anything, just a cappella, something? And then I said to David, do you think you could actually play? And he did. He went up to his piano, he sat down, and he had a piece of music, Now Sleeps the Crimson Petal. And that was the song that Sam sang. And now I think, what a moment that was. We never recorded it, but wouldn't that have been fantastic? So sweet David, that beautiful David Jackson, sleep in peace, and thank you for that beautiful song. Now Sleeps the Crimson Petal. Thank you.
dopo tanta irrisione, la morte. La morte è nulla.
Pnawn da. You've already heard many wonderful things about David this afternoon, and I do hope that Anne and the family will take much comfort from that. But you know, I'm also pretty sure that David himself would have loved to be here, not to bask in our praise of him, he was far too modest for that, but just to listen to the music. And yet, on reflection, you know, even that's not quite accurate. The truth is that David would actually have liked to produce the whole event. He liked nothing better than shaping a program, honing it, ensuring it reached the standard that he always set for himself and for his colleagues. He would, of course, have reveled in both the music and the talents that we've heard this afternoon. For he was not only a gifted musician, as we've heard, an accomplished pianist and composer, but also a gifted producer, and a particular kind of producer. You know, there are some producers, you won't find this strange at all, there are some producers who achieve their aims by the imposition of not inconsiderable egos. That was not David. He had better weapons. Rigor, yes. His deep artistic intelligence meant he would yield to no one in his insistence on high standards. But he also displayed human intelligence, deep understanding, warm empathy, steadfast enthusiasm, and a ready humor. And as we've already heard, who could forget that broad smile? And that's what made him such a wonderful colleague for so many of us here this afternoon. Working with David was a joy and a privilege. That's not to say that there weren't moments when David would have liked to throw all the toys out of the pram. The BBC, for all its virtues, frequently gives you good reason. But my recollection is that he mostly thought better of it. He was a gentleman and, more winningly, a gentle man. His roots, both personal and professional, lay in Scotland, as we've heard, specifically Glasgow. His Wikipedia entry describes him thus: music lover, dad, husband, Scot, brackets, happily living in Wales. And my God, he always gave me the sense of enjoying living in Wales. Initially, he'd been drawn south to London to work in Radio 3's music library before being enticed back to BBC Scotland to be an assistant producer by none other than Hilary Boulding, as we know, formerly of this parish. And eventually, David followed Hilary to BBC Wales and took on the role of head of music with enormous energy and enthusiasm. And weren't we lucky? He left his mark on every element of the musical life of this city. From within the BBC, not only as head of music, but also as artistic director of the Cardiff Singer of the World competition, a competition that, as you've heard, he not only steered creatively, but also defended robustly when programme controllers were tempted to move money elsewhere. You've already heard Dame Kiri's testimony. He even spent time, as some of the people on this stage will know, as the interim director of the BBC National Orchestra of Wales. I have to say, a task not for the faint-hearted. And name any awards, Emmys, BAFTAs, Sony, and David had his name on them all. And because of its virtues, I can tell you that the one drawback of the BBC is that it is an institution with a capacity to swallow you whole. Happily, that is something that David successfully resisted, allowing him most especially to attend to the needs and talents of the young, wherever that might be, whether at this college as Vice Principal for Enterprise and Events, a title surely tailor-made for him, or beyond, a trustee of Sinfonia Cymru, as we've heard, a chair of Forget-Me-Not Chorus, chair of the National Youth Orchestra of Wales, of National Youth Arts Wales, of the Cultural Committee of the Wales Millennium Centre, and beyond this, managing director of the National Children's Orchestra of Great Britain, and as we've heard too, of the school that he helped shape as well. It is a remarkable list. And in all those roles, he was always resolute in championing the young and the disadvantaged. Why? Because he knew and understood disadvantage, and because he was utterly convinced of the healing quality of music making. Everyone in this hall has a reason to thank David for his gifts. But more importantly, there are thousands outside in this community and beyond who may not know quite how much they owe to the talent, to the care and the humanity of David McFarlane Jackson. Diolch amdano.
Good afternoon, everybody. David Jackson was, without question, one of the finest people that I have known in every sense. Others have spoken today about his work for the BBC and elsewhere, but I would like to acknowledge his association with Wigmore Hall and as a great friend. He became the backbone of the jury at the Wigmore Hall International Song Competition over more than a decade. He was always the first person that I invited on the jury and then built the rest of the jury around him. And just having him around gave those of us who organised the London competition an extra layer of confidence. He had the finest judgment, which was so obvious in how he developed the Cardiff competition, raising its standard over his distinguished tenure. He was honest, fair, hard-working, inspirational, and always calm in a crisis. And I remember very well how he and his team delivered a Cardiff singer in one of those lockdowns from the empty hall. He commanded the respect of all those who worked with him on such a complicated BBC live competition. I have one abiding memory of David that I cherish and that I'll share with you now. Completely by accident, I bumped into David and his family in Windsor on a crisp December morning in December 2022. The castle was decorated for Christmas and the adjacent park was covered in frost and the sun was shining very brightly. And David was on his way to receive his richly deserved OBE from the hands of His Majesty the King himself. David was always modest and humble, but there was no hiding his delight on that occasion as we greeted each other with a warm embrace and walked towards the gates of the castle. Only a true Scotsman would brave wearing a kilt in mid-December, and he certainly looked the part in his family tartan. He was surrounded by some of those he loved the most, and they loved him too, like so many of us, in return. Nobody deserved that honour more than David for his achievements in music and his voluntary work, as you've heard today, especially as chairman of the Forget-Me-Not Chorus and the National Youth Arts Wales. You don't get an honour for your paid job. You get it for all these other things. Singers all over the world mourned David's loss when the sad news eventually came through. He was central to so many careers, and what fun he was at jury dinners and lunches, how generous he was when he gave feedback to singers. At Wigmore Hall competitions, he was invaluable, often helping me to dispel or get rid of any factions or politics on the jury. There are lots of stories we could tell, but we won't. David's legacy is vast, and it is a painful prospect to think that some of his work, maybe around the competition, could be diminished in any way. BBC Cardiff singer survived through his tactful determination and his passion for that competition. And in our troubled world, we need these beautiful music occasions to uplift us and to point us towards better things more than ever. David personified all of the values that we've talked about today, whilst showcasing some of the most important singers of our time in opera and in song, to which he gave an equal status. And that was a tremendous boost for art song worldwide. There's an old Gaelic saying, which I'll use by way of conclusion. After all, we are talking about a fellow Celt. It goes, Ní bheidh a le hain araun arish, which means we won't meet the likes of him again. So that's a fitting tribute as we move towards the conclusion of today's ceremony. Rest in peace, dear David, and we bid farewell with the final chorus of Bach's St. Matthew's Passion, which I'm told was your favourite work.
Ladies and gentlemen, you might be confused that the orchestra is leaving the stage. But the final chorus of Bach's St. Matthew Passion is for double orchestra and double choir. So there just needs to be a little bit of reorganization. So please feel free to chat, and we'll be with you very shortly.